Okay, welcome to the regular council agenda meeting for September the 12th. I would now call the meeting to order. We don't have any new business, so I would just like ask council for approval of the agenda with a motion to move agenda item RA1, the Parks and Trails Advisory Committee recommendations, to immediately following receipt of the draft council committee minutes for information. Moved by Councillor Parkinson, seconded by Councillor Pearson. Any discussion on the agenda? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried unanimously. This evening we are pleased to welcome, we have a special presentation tonight from the Royal Canadian Sea Cadets Court. We have Petty Officers First Class Christopher Richardson, Brandon Muttit, and Sam LaRock. So welcome and thank you very much for presenting to us this evening. I invite you to please come forward. Thank you. Sorry, could you please just turn on the microphone?
Okay, there we go.
Thank you very much.
Today I'm presenting the paddle that we made for you for our annual ceremony review back in June, which unfortunately you couldn't attend. We presented it to Councillor Brenda Parkinson in lieu of you, but now we can present it to you. This paddle was made by me. The red and white symbolize Souk and the Souk flag. The blue and green symbolize Souk's industry, farming and fishing. Logging and fishing.
Thank you. The annual review was this past June, and I was out of town, so Councillor Parkinson attended on my behalf. Thank you very much for attending tonight. It's a beautiful craft that you've done, and it's great to see you here as well as your colleagues. So thank you very much for taking the time.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. I'll welcome any member of the public after the meeting if you like to come and take a look at the paddle. It's beautiful, and I'm very grateful and honored to receive such an item. So thank you. Okay, we'll move into adoption of council and committee of the whole minutes. We have 3 sets here. July 11th, our regular council meeting minutes, August the 3rd, special council meeting minutes, and August the 29th, special council meeting minutes. A motion to receive. Moved by Councillor Parkinson. Seconded by Councillor Pearson. Any discussion on the minutes? All those in favor of receipt? Opposed? It's carried unanimously. We have receipt of draft council committee minutes for information. July 27th, the SPA committee meeting minutes. August 31st, SPA committee meeting minutes. And September the 6th, Parks and Trails Advisory Committee meeting minutes. Moved receipt by Councillor Parkinson, seconded by Councillor Loggins. Any questions on the minutes? All those in favor? Opposed? This motion is carried. Okay, so at this time we're going to move to RA1, the Parks and Trails Advisory Committee recommendations, as that was Following receipt of the minutes, I believe our chair, Mr. John Boquist, is here this evening. Mr. Boquist.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll just get some water first, real quick. Madam Chair. Okay. John Boquist, Chair of Parks and Trail Advisory Committee. Thanks for giving us this time to address Council. From our meeting of September 6, 2016, we had unanimous approval on 3 recommendations to take to Council for consideration. I'd like to briefly explain these 3 recommendations. Number 1, that funds be allocated in the 2017 to 2021 financial plan to fund a feasibility study on the creation of a pedestrian bridge from Sun Rivers to Manual Creek Trail to either Sauk School District land or the newly acquired Sea Park land next to Journey Middle School. On September 21st, 2016, Steve Kanoki from Sea Park led committee members on a walk through their newly acquired parkland. Creating a pedestrian bridge across Manual Creek to join up with Sun Rivers to Manual Creek Trail was discussed and possible sites were explored. Steve mentioned that there may be federal money available to help fund a bridge through the HASTE program. This grant is available to help build infrastructure to get students to and from school in a non-motorized fashion. Number 2, we recommend that Council direct staff to set aside funds in the 2017 to 2021 financial plan to re-shoulder Sauk River Road on both the east and west sides as necessary from the Galloping Goose Connector crosswalk to Sauk River, to Sauk Road, on Sauk River Road. Many cyclists and pedestrians who are trying to get from Sauk Road to the Galloping Goose are not using the portion of the connector behind the horseshoe pitch because of the steep grade. Providing a paved shoulder would greatly increase safety for all concerned. Finally, our committee mandate is to enhance connectivity within Sauk. With that in mind, in the roundtable portion of our meeting, we discussed the loss of the pedestrian corridor that has existed for many years between Midway and Home Hardware. Although we understand the property owner was doing what was legally allowed, many citizens of this community have been seriously inconvenienced by the closure of this customary footpath. I've got the wrong. Our recommendation to Council is for Council to work with Home Harbor to allow a public path. Perhaps the district could incentivize the decision. Now, I added a little addendum. Today I went by Home Harbor and I saw that they've actually, when we did this report, the new detail had not been in place. So I realize now that I doubt that they want to hear any thoughts of reinstating the public path along the edge of their property since they've already installed the new fence and gates. We hope the district we had hoped that the district would have approached them before they installed the new detail. In closing, to not lose so in the future, to not lose customary paths, perhaps a process could be in place to include them in any new land use planning. That's the end. Any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Boquist? Thank you very much, Mr. Boquist,
Yeah.
and to your committee members as well. Any questions from councillors? Yes, or comments? Councillor Casper.
Yeah, so, I appreciate all the stuff you presented, and in regard to the pedestrian access, I think it should be understood that, and I can appreciate the frustration of the property owner where they've had this property for a number of years, and they want to fully utilize their property to the fullest extent.
I totally get that.
And they have some serious security issues. It was pointed out to me when I was at the store recently, some very graphic, offensive tagging has been done on their buildings and property. Also, this council made a recommendation to our staff last year to close off a drainage easement that runs through their property that restricts them from further developing or expanding their property. They're not happy with the current progress, and I got a sense of frustration when I was advised that the pedestrian access is closed off.
Right.
So I'm sure you can appreciate, like everybody in this room, that if somebody owns property and if they feel that in some way, shape, or form negative things are happening to their property, then naturally I think all of us would want to take some action of some kind.
Yeah, I totally
Now, I
get that.
can't
Yeah.
speak for them,
Yeah.
but that was my reaction to them. And I feel it's incumbent on me to actually say that.
Yeah.
Because you talked about, well, maybe the district can do something to negotiate or to try to do something quid pro quo. You didn't use those words, but that's my understanding.
Okay.
So, I think, Mayor Tate has spoken to the owners about getting rid of the drainage easement. Other council members have spoken to the owners, get rid of this drainage easement that restricts them from expanding their building and providing better service to the community. So, I appreciate what you're doing and what you're saying, but I can't support recommendation number 3. And the reason why is because I think that we have to show a little more leadership on accommodating them on something that's restricted them for a number of years.
Oh, yeah, no, that's fine.
So
I'm trying
thank
to,
you for your...
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Rick. No, I'm just trying to represent the roundtable discussion. And this is just trying to get to a broader issue of traditional paths on private property. It's just a bigger issue. This was an example. I understand this has been lost. Home Hardware, I shopped there today. I totally support. I get what they had to do. But again, I just think going forward, when planning takes place, we should take into account traditional paths. And it's too bad about tagging and humans going bad. It is, so I guess that's it. Yeah, no. This is just an example. I mean, I'm sure there'll be other issues like this coming up in the future. And I just thought the discussion should begin about this issue of we're trying to call this place connectivity, and we need pedestrian for a downtown core to work. We have to allow pedestrians and cyclists to move smoothly in here. And it's not this town. If you get out of your car and walk around, it's a real challenge.
Absolutely, I totally agree.
So I get you.
Yeah. Direct your comments to me, Councillor Casper. Councillor Ray or Pearson? Councillor Pearson, go ahead.
Okay. Wow. Thank you, Mr. Boquist, for your presentation, and I appreciate the work that you and the committee are doing. I think you've hit all 3 things are easily to support from me. I want to say, though, that I concur with Mr. Casper's comments around when we get into private property owners. Pedestrian access, absolutely. And I think that I'll support the recommendation if we kind of leave the home hardware piece out of it, or the private property owners. Like, I think we need to look at development, and when development variance permits or development permits come forward, how can we work with the property owners as well? And I agree 100% with you, except for one comment that you made about the downtown core being inaccessible, because I got a call from my wife today while I was at work on my break. And she talked about how she got new tires up at Dewey's and then walked around the downtown, how much it's improved in recent years, and that the connectivity from Newmont to downtown to Maple Avenue through the town center is improving, and how much she felt it. And she was born in the downtown core here, so
there you go.
So
no, it's wonderful.
So that's an opinion I really have to listen to. Is that one?
Yeah, so listen to the boss.
We are improving. So thank you for your work on the committee, and thank you for these recommendations. I will support it, but I think we need to tweak this as opposed to putting the owners of Home Hardware on the hook. I think we need to look at that.
If
Anna Marie.
Right. Okay. If I could use I use this one word, incentivize, where perhaps. This is where I'm ignorant on what the district can and can't do. Could there be some kind of tax relief to property owners? We had this issue at the end of Eustis when we're trying to join up the end of Eustis Road and Caldwell. There's a path that's being used that it's just it'd be nice to just put a multi-use trail through there, but it's private property. So, and I believe I think Kerry had looked into approaching the landowner, but again, I hope that we can continue to have this kind of discussion and allow landowners to have traditional trails, pedestrian corridors on their property. So.
Okay. And exactly. Like I say, and I agree 100% with what you're saying. What I think we need to do is at our strategic planning session that's upcoming is to talk about how do we encourage development and the applications for development or easement removals, and make sure that our staff is cognizant of development and that our strategic plan is to increase connectivity in the downtown. So that piece I agree with, and I think that I kind of get what you're saying. So I'll bring it forward at strategic planning.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, very good.
Councillor Ray?
Thank you, and again, thank you for your presentation. I can't take credit for talking to the landowner there at Eustis, but I have been known to talk about pushing the road through, hopefully, down there. It gives us another access from Eustis around. My comment is it's great to see the recommendation about looking at the path crossing to Manuel Creek, a lot of kids up in Sun River. I think the only thing that I would like to see that it be considered, because we're not in that process yet in terms of budget. So
long range.
Yeah, so that we consider allocating the funds in the 2017.
Yep.
But yes, great work. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Okay, so looking to council, I think number 3 is something perhaps I can just go back to staff, but in terms of 1 and 2, number 1 is basically to investigate the pedestrian crossing, not necessarily to construct it, but
if I can, Your Worship, that is costing money to do the feasibility or the study.
Okay.
So that's what I think that's the question I take
we're hoping for
this.
a line item in the financial plan for 2017, 2021.
So perhaps it could be that council directs staff to investigate the cost of a feasibility study in the 2017 to 2021. Just so we have a sense of what to budget in there. And then the second one, again, would be investigating. To me means would be to get the cost of reshouldering. If I'm not mistaken. Councillor Ray, then Pearson.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. My comment in terms of number 2 is that that's reshouldering the area that we've just spent $75,000 as part of a $150,000 project to put that bike path and walking path behind the horseshoe. Mm-hmm. I think to start trying to then move it onto the road because of the parking issue. I mean, that's why it went behind, because of the regulations around the funding and not having it next to a parking lot. It is very steep. I've ridden my bike and had to get off to go up the other side, but I'm wondering if it might be an opportunity to see if we can decrease the slope on the existing path rather than trying to look to redo something on the street. So.
Could I speak? Or no? What in
Yes,
our okay to speak? Yeah, in our discussion, one of our Debbie Clarkson pointed out that she likes to take her dog on that trail down there, and that trail behind the horseshoe pitch opens up that newly acquired land, and there's a lot of potential there for not just strictly as a bike corridor. That becomes the gateway into that the nice area that is, I guess it's tidal, but somebody's seen wolf tracks down there, and so the way I see it, because what's actually happening is cyclists are not, if they want to get from the bridge to the Galloping Goose, they're just going to go along Souk River Road. So that's why we were hoping to the crosswalk, and that's the real world. And then the other, the connector behind the horseshoe pitch becomes a really nice little trail amenity that leads into a new parkland. So we can have both. We can It doesn't have to be one or the other. It can be, and signage would do that nicely. Signage could. Yeah. Again, people are going to use the shoulder whether it's paved or not. That's just how it is with cyclists. So.
Fair enough. Okay. Councillor Pearson.
Okay. Last comment, and then I'll finish off with a motion. We have a SPA committee, and they've made some recommendations to us, and I think that some of these recommendations are need to be. Oh, sorry, Parks and Trails Committee. Sorry, you called it SPA committee. Parks and Trails Advisory Committee. We've asked them to come up with some recommendations, and they've asked us for a little bit of investigation here. If anybody else on council would support me, I'd make a motion with the change to number 3 is that staff be directed to continually be aware of opportunities in our downtown core. I want to get the home hardware piece out of that recommendation and improve connectivity. So I'd make a motion to direct staff to investigate the potential costs or what are we looking for here?
It's been fixed. Pardon me, it's been fixed.
I can't read it.
I can't read it right now, but it is that direct staff to investigate the costs. So that part has been amended to
Of studies, et cetera. Okay.
Yeah. And then number 2 was left as is, and then staff is just working on number 3.
Okay. Yes, I'd like to, before I make my motion, I'd like to read it on there.
Yeah.
Your Worship, if I may,
Yes.
Councillor Pearson, please clarify how you'd like it changed, number 3?
That direct staff to investigate the connectivity in our downtown core. I purposely want to leave the word Sewell Home Hardware out of it so that staff is aware of any potential developments that are in the downtown core.
Okay.
Through the chair too.
Okay, so would you like to move all those 3?
Yes.
Okay, Councillor Pearson has moved them, seconded by Councillor Parkinson. Our CAO has a comment.
Thank you, Your Worship. If I can ask Councillor Pearson to also clarify number 2, because we've heard 2 different things, one of which is we might want to consider looking at the grade of the trail going behind the horseshoe pit, and we've also got something up here that talks about investigating costs associated with the reshouldering of Sewell River Road, and I think staff needs some clarification about which direction council wishes to go.
I can say like the improvement of Sewell River Road, the pedestrian improvement, right? So that could be the trail or that. So if the Parks and Trails Committee were happy with that, I would move that.
Absolutely, sir.
Okay.
Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah, we'll just, pardon me, once we just see it up there, I just want to make sure that's what you've said and what Councillor Parkinson has seconded. It'll just be just a few moments here. I think this is very helpful for us to see our motions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's been changed, that council directs staff to investigate costs associated with pedestrian improvements on Sewell River Road, and that council directs staff to investigate connectivity in the downtown core.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so any questions on the motion that's been moved and seconded? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you very much, Mr. Boquist.
Yeah, thank you, Council.
And please pass on our thanks to the committee as well.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Your Worship, can I get who seconded that motion, please?
Councillor Parkinson?
Thank you.
Okay. So we're going to move into our delegations. We have one this evening. We'd like to welcome from the Victoria Pet Food Bank and Feral Cat Rehabilitation Society, Ms. Margarita Dominguez. And Ms. Dominguez, as you know, there's always the 5 minutes.
Good evening.
Thank you.
Well, I feel very difficult to apply for waiving the fees, the $500 fees. We want to do 2 off-leash events. Our plan was to do it in Whiffenspit, and we applied. We came here in July 11th to ask to divide Whiffenspit, and after council passes to the advisory committee, which means apparently has been postponed, and we have no answer if we are allowed to do the 2 parties. We rely in fundraising. We very rarely apply for grants. We do not like to apply for grants because I think that there are too many people that they need money. And unless it's an extreme necessity that we have. But 500, when we do 2 parties in Clover Point for our pet food bank. And in Clover Point, in the city of Victoria, we only have to provide our insurance policy that we already pay $70 or $65 a month every month. And with that, we have, if we do it in Centennial Square, for example, every year we do a supper for the homeless pet owners in November, October. And then we can have 2 tents and tables and water and chairs, and we don't pay anything for that. Now, if we want to pick up the tents and take it to Clover Point, then we pay $150. And that is returned when we get it. When we apply, we call here to see if we can apply to have 2 events. Here, as you must know, is the insurance plus $500 in the moment that we apply, and that money is returned just at the end of the event if nothing got broken, with no interest or anything. Which means $500 may sound not too much for a society that has a lot of money, but for small societies, I'm talking on behalf of everybody, not talking on behalf of us only. I think so. It's kind of humiliating to come here to ask for waived fees. I will ask again if we can have, because the Advisory Parks and Trails Committee didn't give us an answer, about the off-leash park in Whiffenspit for certain hours of the day, which we consider that has no drainage problems, no fencing required. We only ask for a certain amount of hours only, and the rest of the day for the dogs can be on leash. And that, when the dog is on leash, is more evident for the owner has to pick up the poo because it's right beside him, he cannot run it loose, which means we thought that it was a perfect solution, but we weren't very successful. But we would like to ask you if we can do 2 events, fundraising event a year, and if you can waive the $500 fees, please.
Okay, if I may clarify, Ms. Dominguez, so what I'm hearing is that you would like to do, there's 2 different things here. You would like to have 2 off-leash events per year, so asking council to waive the fees for both of those events is one part. But also, would council consider having Whiff and Spit used twice a year as an off-leash area?
I asked you personally that here in council on July 11 to divide when Dallas Road decided, Victoria Council decided to divide. It wasn't the question to divide Dallas Clover Point in 2. With a fence in the middle. I came to you and I asked if we could do that here. Now, considering that it would be expensive, it would be the same thing that fencing. Then now during the summertime, we got the idea. So why don't we do from 6 o'clock in the morning to 9 o'clock at night? 6 o'clock in the morning to 9 in the morning, and from 8 to 10 at night. And that in that way, but we presented from 8 at night to 9 in the morning, but Laura told us that it's a bylaw, that we cannot do that cannot be there during dawn, and we accepted that.
Okay, so if I may then, what I think council would need is a staff report on Whiff and Spit, because I've just glanced at the minutes. I know that Whiff and Spit right now, your dog can be on off-leash provided it's under control of the owner. But what you're asking is us to fence off part of Whiff and Spit, or to...
No.
Okay, so certain times of the day, all the time, to have dogs off-leash.
From 6 o'clock in the morning to 9 o'clock in the morning.
6 in the morning to 9 in the morning.
And from 8 to 10 at night is the time. What happens is people are bringing dogs from all over. Victoria is getting, Souk is getting, new people are moving here.
Oh, no, I'm aware that it's very busy. So I think that's a separate piece. So if council likes, we could refer that back to staff. And, unless you would like to make that decision tonight,
May I
changing the use of
second?
the park.
What happens is that we have been tabling this off-leash park for 5 years. It started, the petition for 457 signatures was presented in May 2011, which means 5 years of paying staff. of paying engineer studies. You know, it's a moment that we take a decision somehow. We found that the solution, because in Whiff and Spit, the dogs are contained. They
Okay.
don't escape.
Okay, no, I hear what you're saying. Okay, so thank you very much. Councillor Pearson, Loggins, then Parkinson.
Through the chair to Ms. Dominguez, you asked something about waiving of the fees for an
Yeah.
event,
Yes.
and then, okay, so I just need to understand, what is that?
That is, when we do an event, we ask your department to do an event. For example, we want to do a fundraising event in Whiff and Spit for our pet food bank.
Okay.
Okay, we don't have too much food coming in, and we have 30 families that we deliver door to door.
Okay.
People, they need our service, and it's just
Okay.
to the point of crying, you know, and we don't have too much food coming in. Now, we do constantly to do fundraising events. And we do pet food drives in different places, in Kool-Aid Society, in Victoria, and here. Now, our parties are nice, and a lot of people come to bring the dogs, dress the dogs up, or just at different events.
Okay, so I need to ask a couple more questions. So you want to have an event on Whiff and Spit
Yeah.
where you do a fundraiser,
Yeah.
and our current fee is $500.
Yeah, the insurance, we pay an insurance every month.
Okay.
We have to present the
Okay.
insurance plus $500.
Okay, that's question number one.
Yeah.
So you are planning 2 events in 1 year.
Yes.
Okay. So you want to do it in the parking lot down by Whiff and Spit? Through the chair.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And the dogs, the families can run. This is a family
And
event.
how long do you want to do it for? How many hours?
Oh, it will be 5 hours, 6 hours.
Okay. So what is this other question? Okay, I got
Yeah.
that now. So what's the second thing about this fence?
The second part is the part that we asked the committee to allow, because the off-leash park is never it was in 2015 that council said that, well, all the studies have been done. John Philip Park the drainage is not good. Pond Park is too close to residences.
Okay, I think I got it now. You're talking about.
Yes.
Okay. So question number 1 is you want to know if we'll waive the fees for your fundraising.
Yes, please.
Okay, got you. Okay,
And the second is the dog off-leash park.
okay, got it. I think.
Councillor Loggins?
Thank you for coming today. I have no problem with waiving the fee, but I just wanted to refer to staff to make sure that fee would be applied, because you are a charitable organization, correct, with a
Nonprofit.
What happens, we don't apply for charity status anymore. We are a non-profit society, but if I am a charity, I cannot do certain political activities. I
right.
do.
So I just wanted to confirm with staff, if I may, through the chair, because the $500 fee would apply if you were doing commercial business, but I'm just not sure if a fundraiser would qualify for that.
That's what Maya, what is her name? Joyce
The staff,
Maya
that's fine.
told
We
us.
don't need
Yes.
to use names, thanks.
And there has been emails with Patty too.
Right. And so, okay, thank you. That's
You're
fine,
welcome.
because I have no problem with that, and I'll make a motion to waive the fee.
Apparently, you have done it to other societies before.
Yeah, I just said I'd make a motion to waive the fee as well. But the one thing, in a second, the one thing that I wanted to clarify as well is that when we do give out permits for events at the parks, we can't close the parks. The permit just allows the event to not be double booked with another event at the same time.
Yeah. That's normal.
But I don't see any
Yeah.
problem with what you're doing there, so I'll make that motion then to waive the fee.
So the motion has been made to waive the fee for 2 events.
Anytime throughout the year?
And do you know when these events?
Not yet, because I'm waiting for seeing if the off-leash, the Whiff and Spit is going to be allowing the Whiff and Spit to be an off-leash park for certain hours of the day.
Okay, so we don't know when the events
The
are?
motion I would make,
Yeah.
Ms. Dominguez, would be for 2 events that you are hoping
Yes.
to run as fundraisers.
Yes.
I
don't know the dates yet.
Okay, can we have those dates within, can they be, do you have a timeline of generally when they might be? Because we have to be a bit more specific.
We have one
about
in
it.
the spring and one in the fall
Okay, of 2017?
of 2017, yes.
Okay, so, what does it say? I think our staff is just rewording that. So
What
2
happens-
events in 2017. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so Councillor Loggins, is that your motion there? That council directs staff to waive the event fee for the Victoria Pet Food Bank for their next two events in 2016 and 2017?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded by Councillor Casper.
Thank you.
Okay, discussion on the motion. Councillor Parkinson, then Pearson, and
So when it comes to using our parks, whether it's for weddings or any kind of event, everybody pays the $500, which is they put down so that the park is returned in how they got it. So to clean up for garbage, for everything like that. So I understand that we waive those fees for a number of items. The Committee for Parks and Trails talked about using Whiff and Spit as the off-leash dog park and for different events. And they weren't, I would say, they wanted to look at the possibility of other locations instead of Whiff and Spit, seeing as it's a highly used park with a lot of dogs already off leash. And then if there's problems with keeping the Spit clean, which is a big problem right now, regardless of what time it's open at. And the discussion was to have it open later in the evening so that you wouldn't even be able to see where your dog went to the washroom or anything. And the current bylaws restrict all our parks from being open from dusk till dawn. So that's the timings that in our bylaws where they're closed. So it wouldn't work for the evenings. Whiff and Spit is also home to a lot of nesting birds and migratory birds. And so having even more dogs down there, I think, could cause chaos. And so the action item from the committee was to bring discussion of off-leash dog parks forward to the upcoming Parks and Trails Advisory Committee meeting for further discussion of possible options and location with staff that were at the meeting to provide the report. Okay. So,
okay, so that'll come forward. The discussion is with Council, Ms. Dominguez. Okay. Councillor Pearson, then Loggins.
Okay. And I want to say thank you to you, Ms. Dominguez. You always come here and you're always passionate about the care for the animals. I would support this motion if it was changed to the first one and the success on the first one, because you're asking for two events. So my pragmatic brain tells me that once we do one and it doesn't work well, we're obligated to do a second one. So the skin in the game for you would be if you do a good job on the first one and the park is cleaned up, and then we would grant you the second one would be conditional of the first one being there. That would be just an amendment to the motion if somebody is willing to do that. I know it's for planning purposes, but I'd like to see some assurances because it's our public park, and I'd like to see some assurances that it's returned, as Councillor Parkinson has said, back to the pristine state that it was in prior to using it. So I have no problem with you using the park for those events and waiving the fees. I would like to ask council what their appetite would be to say the second one would be conditional on the return of after the first one.
You can just move that amendment, Councillor Pearson.
Before you do, though, may I jump in and say that there is still a $500 deposit required, and which is cashed and
given in the moment of applying, that we need to.
Let me finish, please, Ms. Dominguez. The deposit is returned back to the applicant if the park is returned in that pristine condition. So there is still that transaction of funds to ensure that the park is still
But
returned.
in this case, the motion is that it's waived.
No, there are two. So there's a $500 fee to use the park, and there's a $500 deposit to ensure that it's cleaned up.
No,
I think it's the one and the same. Can I perhaps get clarity on that from staff, please, on the fee? I thought it was the one and the same.
So did I.
The $500 fee is a deposit to make sure, or to ensure that the park is remediated if necessary and is refunded at the end of the event.
So in this case, though, we are waiving the deposit. So there would be no.
If I'm hearing the motion correct, that would be correct.
Yes, so there is just the one.
So anytime that I've had a park fee waived, which did just happen recently for the August 20th event, we still had to pay the deposit, which was cashed and returned as well.
Okay, we'll need some clarity on that from staff. To our CAO, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think because there's no real hard timeline on this, I would encourage Council to refer the matter to staff so that we can take a look at the larger implications of the motion that's on the floor right now. I think it's a slippery slope when we start to talk about waiving fees for events that we don't know when they're going to occur. And what the implications to the other non-for-profits who are not charitable organizations, but can argue that they have limited funds available as well. So I just think it's really important for Council to understand the larger implications of this, and because there isn't a really heavy deadline attached to it right now, I'd encourage Council to refer it to staff for October the 11th.
Okay. At that time, we'll get some feedback from the Parks and Trails Committee as well, because as Councillor Parkinson said, they would be examining the off-leash point at the same time. Councillor Casper?
Well, this is a cash flow issue for the organization, as it has been for other organizations. And if the site or the area that they're occupying to use isn't cleaned up, then they wouldn't get to do the next one.
That's the language that
So I'm, but I think that would come naturally anyway. It would just come by default. If you didn't clean it up and we waived the deposit and it costs money to clean it up, well then we're going to recommend to council.
We have excellent references from Victoria.
Oh no, I understand that.
And we have the
so,
insurance also it pays.
So I don't want to debate. See, I can't debate it with you, but I'm going to vote in support of the motion as it stands.
Okay.
If it
well,
does happen.
This is a public record, and I think it's clear to everyone that the second event wouldn't happen if the first one didn't work. I think it's video. It's noted for district record. It's being recorded. I think we're clear on that. So I'll call the question on the motion. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Parkinson is opposed. Okay. And vote recorded, please.
Thank you.
So that's that, and we'll wait to receive recommendations from our Parks and Trails Committee. Okay.
Thank you very
Ms.
much.
Dominguez. Okay, so I'd like to move on into our public question and comment period of tonight's agenda. I would like to encourage anyone from the public to come forward, with the exception of the two public hearings, as they both have public input sessions in them. So everything but PH1 and PH2. So I'd like to welcome any member of the public to come forward, please. We just need your name and address for the record, please. Ms. Santowski, can you turn on the microphone?
Sorry. My name is Britt Santowski, and I live at 2206 Church Road. I just have a question about the agenda in general. You guys are going in camera at the end of the meeting, and then after that it says that you're going to report of any in-camera resolutions. And I'm just wondering, process-wise, is that something that we stick around for, or we catch at home, or how is that done?
That typically is when we have, when council goes in camera, we may not have anything to release to the public at that particular time. So when council rises and reports at an in-camera, it would come to the next regular council meeting. So no, you don't need to wait around for that.
Thank you.
Thank you for asking. Are other members of the public? Go ahead. Yes, please, just because of where we're at in the agenda. We just need you to turn the microphone on again. Thank
Margarita
you.
Dominguez, 2075 Other Point Road. I'm going to ask about two subjects in the agenda. One is on July 11th, you told us that you will have a meeting for the homeless issue, for having a soup kitchen and an emergency shelter, that it will be a forum to study if there will be some money available from the provincial and the federal to study the affordable housing and emergency shelter. And we would like to know if you have a date when, because you say that it will be in the fall. We would like to know if you have a date when the homelessness situation in Sewell can be addressed.
We're looking at housing, the spectrum of housing, and staff is currently working on that in conjunction with our town hall and the dates around our strategic planning session. So we're still finalizing dates.
Okay.
Okay, next
and
question.
the second question is about the SUC program for the arts. You know that I've been in arts all my life, and I understand about that subject. I have too many things in my life to get involved in that, but I attended the SPA meeting the other day, and I don't want to criticize anybody, but I found out that they are doing a book about the artworks that they are in the district of SUC, that the district owns. I would like to bring back the artist lane, that it will provide a source of revenue for our artists. I presented that project 2 or 3 years ago. I will be gladly help you. But I wanted to talk the other day in the meeting, but I didn't know that we needed to apply for to pass as a delegation. I called before and said that I will go there, but I couldn't even express what I wanted to say. I think so that the artist lane, I think so that the market idea from the summertime, it came from this idea. We have a blog that is called SUC Art Lane. I created it 2 years ago. And it's just a little investment, and it can provide a lot of stability from our youth and our artists to have their own money coming in.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, well, council will
very
take that into consideration. Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Dominguez. Any other members of the public? Thank you.
Ian Thomas, 6675 Horn Road. And I'm talking on RA number 6, the proposed closure and sale of excess roadway for Maple Park Terrace. I'm just fairly new here, but I know historically that has been used, and I've run with the Star Runners along that road in order to get up into some trails just on the lower part of Broom Hill. And so as we were talking about access for moving around the town, I just wanted to bring your awareness to the fact that this is a throughway that is used, and that might be in your consideration from a Parks and Trails perspective when you're considering closing and selling that piece of land, that throughway. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Other members of the public? Call for a second time. Okay, so we'll move on into the agenda, starting with our public hearings. PH1, bylaw number 636, zoning amendment bylaw 600-24, 7125 Grant Road West. We will begin this evening with a report from our planning department. Ms. Johnston, are you presenting? Okay, thank you and welcome.
Good evening, Your Worship and members of Council. The public hearing today is for a zoning amendment at 7125 Grant Road West. The applicant has applied to rezone the property from rural residential RU4 to small lot residential R3 with the intent of subdividing to create 8 strata lots. Next slide, please. The applicant has also applied to include the property within the sewer specified area. There are 4 mobile homes on the property. All are owned by the property owner. All tenants have been notified, of the rezoning application. The subject property is designated as community residential in the official community plan. The goals of the community residential designation are to ensure sustainable single-family and multifamily construction and provision of municipal services in an efficient manner. Grant Road West is in an area with mixed residential uses. The proposed rezoning will provide infill and will be a compatible use for the surrounding development, with the surrounding development. The community amenity contribution is applicable to this rezoning, and the developer has agreed to provide a monetary contribution based on the maximum density permitted under the R3 zone, and this will be contributed at time of subdivision. Overall, this rezoning application is consistent with the policies and objectives of the official community plan, and it is recommended that prior to adoption of the bylaw, that a Section 219 covenant be registered on the property to address amenity contribution. And the applicant is here today as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnston. Are there any questions to staff? Okay, so there's a statement I will read as we enter into our public hearing. This public hearing is being held pursuant to the Local Government Act. At this public hearing, any person who believes that their interest in property is affected by the proposed bylaw will be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard or to present written submissions respecting matters contained in the bylaw that are subject of this hearing. Copies of written submissions received to date are available. It is important that all who speak at this hearing restrict their remarks to matters contained in the bylaw, and it is my responsibility of chair of this hearing to ensure that all remarks are so restricted. For those of you who wish to speak at the appropriate time, commence your address to council by clearly stating your name and home address. Then you may give us the benefit of your views concerning the proposed bylaw. Submissions must be received before or during the public hearing in order to be considered by council. Members of council may, if they so wish, ask questions of you following your presentation or submission. However, the main function of councillors this evening is to listen to the views of the public. It is not the function of council at this public hearing to debate the merits of the proposed bylaw with individual citizens. Everyone who deems his or her interest in property to be affected shall be given the opportunity to be heard at this hearing. No one will be or should feel discouraged or prevented from making his or her views known. Please note that this hearing forms part of this evening's regular council meeting and as such is being video recorded. Videos and their contents, including any personal information disclosed during the public hearing, will be posted on the district's website. So this time I would like to welcome any members of the public forward, please. Call for a second time and a third time. See none, I'll close the public hearing then and bring the matter back to council for council to consider third reading of the bylaw. Move third reading by Councillor Casper, seconded by Councillor Pearson. Any discussion on the motion? That is that council grant third reading to bylaw number 636, zoning amendment bylaw 600-24 to rezone the property located at 7125 Grant Road from rural residential RU4 to small lot residential R3. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay. Move on to PH2, bylaw number 646. And I believe Councillor Loggins has a conflict to declare.
I live within the region for the public hearing, so I will step out for this.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Loggins, and you get around me, okay. Is there a chair in the hallway, or if someone could please grab one for Councillor Loggins? Thank you, Mr. Blackhall. Okay, so I'll turn this over to our staff. Ms. Lashane, are you presenting?
Yes.
Thank you and welcome.
Good evening, Your Worship and members of Council. This evening, members of the public will be invited to provide input on the rezoning application for a portion of 7021 Grant Road. This property has been a long-established manufactured home park of approximately 6.3 acres. The land is primarily zoned manufactured home park. However, a small portion of the lot along Grant Road has a R1 large lot residential zoning assigned to it. Currently, there are 3 manufactured homes on that part of the lot zoned R1, and the owners want to bring the property into compliance with the existing use and the majority of the site. So this slide is showing the zoning and the OCP context. The zoning bylaw map at the top, you can see that the orange portion of the property is manufactured home park. And then the yellow in the very top corner is the zoning inconsistency, the single family residential zone. And then the lower map shows the OCP designation as community residential, which supports a variety of housing types, residential infill, and the preservation and enhancement of existing neighborhoods. Overall, the rezoning application for a portion of 7021 Grant Road is consistent with the policies and objectives of the official community plan. Approval of this rezoning application will bring the zoning into compliance with the existing use of the property.
Thank you, Ms. Lashane. Questions from councillors? Seeing none, I'll read the statement again for the public hearing. This public hearing is being held pursuant to the Local Government Act. At this public hearing, any person who believes that their interest in property is affected by the proposed bylaw will be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard or to present written submissions respecting matters contained in the bylaw that are subject of this hearing. Copies of written submissions received to date are available. It is important that all who speak at this hearing restrict their remarks to matters contained in the bylaw, and it is my responsibility as chair of this hearing to ensure that all remarks are so restricted. For those of you who wish to speak at the appropriate time, please commence your address to council by clearly stating your name and home address. Then you may give us the benefit of your views concerning the proposed bylaw. Submissions must be received before or during the public hearing in order to be considered by council. Members of council may, if they so wish, ask questions of you following your presentation or submission. However, the main function of councillors this evening is to listen to the views of the public. It is not the function of council at this public hearing to debate the merits of the proposed bylaw with individual citizens. Everyone who deems his or her interest in property to be affected shall be given the opportunity to be heard at this hearing. No one will be or should feel discouraged or prevented from making his or her views known. Please note that this hearing forms part of the regular council meeting this evening, and as such is being video recorded. Videos and their contents, including any personal information disclosed during the public hearing, will be posted on the district website. So at this time, I would like to welcome any members of the public forward. Call for a second time. And a third time, third and last time. Okay, so the hearing is closed and return to council for consideration of third reading. Moved by Councillor Pearson and seconded by Councillor Parkinson that council grant third reading to bylaw number 646, zoning amendment bylaw 600-31 to rezone a portion of the property located at 7021 Grant Road from large lot residential R1 to manufactured home park MHP. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Lashane. If we could please have Councillor Loggins returned. Okay, so we're moving into our bylaw portion. B1, there is a recommendation that council adopt bylaw number 643, zoning amendment bylaw 600-29. Moved by Councillor Casper, seconded by Councillor Berger. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Next item is bylaw number 649, Sucor Sewer Specified Area Amendment Bylaw. We do have a report from staff, and welcome Ms. Lewis. Thank you.
Sorry, this will be the first of three sewer specified area amendment reports that are coming forward. The first one is for an inclusion of an existing duplex at 7047 and 7049 Maple Park Terrace into the sewer specified area. The applicants have been presented with opportunity to connect to infrastructure that's currently being installed in new road being constructed by the developer at 7044 Maple Park Terrace. Used to be known as Spiritwood, and it's had a few other name changes since then. There's the duplex, the two red boxes, and the rest of the development is going to be having a new road being constructed right now, which has provided an opportunity for the duplex to access the new pipe that's being installed. Our sewer model has been run with our engineering firm, and they have indicated that there's acceptable capacity to make this connection. And it's for council if you have any questions.
Councillor Ray?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Through to staff, I just note that the recommendations actually say on page 53, 7048. So I believe that should read 7049.
There's actually three that are coming forward. So we have 7047 and 7049 is the duplex, and 7048 is a separate.
My apologies.
House. That's all right. They're right across the street from each other. So,
just as a note, both Councillor Pearson and my iPads have failed, so I'm trying to go back through the so I'm trying to go back and forth in the paper. Okay,
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, so I'm kind of lost in the paperwork, so
It's,
okay,
we're
I'm
on
on the wrong page.
Page 39. I've been on the paper, so, okay. Other questions regarding this to staff? Councillor Casper, or pardon me, sorry, Councillor Berger, then Casper. Then
Thank you. Through you to staff, noticing the addresses, I'm sort of going between both of the agendas, and you previously just stated about how, and it's actually in the second package, but the property was included in district staff sewer model for engineering to providing that there's enough capacity and infrastructure. So was that entire area of, sorry, I keep wanting to call it Spearwood, but Maple Park Terrace, when we initially did that, was the whole area sort of encompassed with the sewer, or was it just recently done as far as flows and capacity?
We actually had, for this specific application, for this duplex, the model was run again to add this duplex as well as the next house that we'll see in the next report.
Okay, so it was just done recently again?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, Councillor Casper, then Pearson.
So are we going to just make sure that we capture any suites that may exist or may be installed? Suites?
Suites?
Yes.
Because it's a duplex, there should not be
Or
any suites
just
in there.
because it's getting hooked up to the sewer, that seems to be the natural thing to happen usually. So I just want to have some comfort that we do capture suites that may exist on any of these properties, now or in the future.
Right. I've been advised that there's no suites,
Okay.
but beyond going in and looking in their house.
No, I know. No, I understand. That's okay. Great. Thanks.
Okay.
Councillor Pearson.
I'm lost without my iPad. So what's the net increase over existing from the plan to the application of number of connections?
Increase for this?
Yes.
It would be the 2 units.
That's it?
It's one duplex, one side each, so.
Okay, that's all. Okay, never mind, I got it. Thank you.
Okay, so we have on page 39, there's a recommendation. Now, a question to our corporate services. This would need to be broken out in parts. The first part first, and then to break the first into first, second, and third readings, like they would all be broken out. Is that correct, procedurally?
Procedurally, I'd prefer that, yes.
Okay. So procedurally then, Council, if you could please consider point number 1 as the recommendation as stated. It's very long. I think there's no change. I don't really need to read it out.
Move first reading.
Okay, so moved. Or pardon me, back to our corporate officer. Number 1 is just on his own, or is that? Okay, so that's just we're just moving recommendation
Yes.
number 1, and it's not a first reading. It's just to move the recommendation. Okay,
recommendations.
so moved by Councillor Ray, seconded by Councillor Parkinson. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Okay, so now if I could please ask for first reading to bylaw number 649, Sewell Course Sewer Specified Area Amendment Bylaw 147-28.
Move first reading.
Moved by Councillor Parkinson, seconded by Councillor Loggins. Any discussion? Councillor Pearson, did you? Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Move second reading. Move second by Councillor Parkinson, seconded by Councillor Pearson. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. Move third by Councillor Parkinson, seconded by Councillor Pearson. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you very much. Carried unanimously. The next part, item 3 then, is to grant first reading to bylaw 650, Sewell Course Sewer Specified Area Amendment Bylaw 147. Moved by Councillor Casper, seconded by Councillor Loggins. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Move second reading. Moved by Councillor Casper, seconded by Councillor Loggins. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. And third reading, please. Moved by Councillor Parkinson and seconded by Councillor Casper. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Okay. Thank you, everybody. That's great. Thank you. So that brings us to B2. Pardon me, B3. Bylaw number 651, suit for sewer specified area amendment, bylaw 147. So this is for the
second house.
the second house, 7048 Maple Park Terrace.
Has all the same
Yes.
opportunities as the duplex that we just discussed.
Okay,
If there's
any questions to staff? Okay, if we could have the recommendation on the screen, please. Okay, so this one's a bit different. That's to receive the petition for local area service for the property located at 7048 Maple Park Terrace, legally described at Lot 6, Section 21, Suit District Plan. And so that's on its own, correct? To our account, okay. Moved by Councillor Ray, seconded by, moved by Councillor Berger and seconded by Councillor Ray. Any discussion or questions? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Okay, first reading, please. Moved by Councillor Berger, seconded by Councillor Parkinson. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Second reading? Moved second by Councillor Parkinson and seconded by Councillor Pearson. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. And third reading? Moved by Councillor Pearson and seconded by Councillor Parkinson. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Is carried unanimously. Thank you. Wow. Okay. B4, please. Bylaw number 652, zoning amendment bylaw 603-4, 6557 Clairview Road. It's a rezoning application. And presenting is Ms. Johnston. Welcome back.
The application for you tonight is to rezone 6557 Clairview Road from large lot residential R1 to low density multifamily 1, RM1, with the intent of developing a 2-story fourplex. The area to be rezoned is approximately 1,416 square meters, which is about 0.14 of a hectare, and it's within the sewer specified area. The subject property is within the official community plan designation of community residential, which supports a variety of housing types, residential infill, and the preservation and enhancement of existing neighborhoods. The subject property is also within walking distance to amenities in the Souk Town Centre. The lands surrounding are predominantly single-family residential, and Mariners Village is located to the west.
Okay, any question? Oh, pardon me, you're still going. Sorry, I'm sorry.
Within the low-density multifamily zone, the maximum density permitted on the subject property is 4 dwelling units, and the developer has proposed a 2-story fourplex. This form of development will provide an attractive transition to a higher density in a predominantly single-family neighborhood while respecting views to the harbor. The developer has had a preliminary geotechnical study prepared, which concludes that there is a suitable building site, but it is recommended that a further site-specific geotechnical study be required at time of development permit. It has also been determined that the nearby area along the waterfront is potential habitat for the cormorant, which is a species at-risk bird. And the developer understands that he will need to follow the mitigation plan that his environmental professional has prepared once land prepping and construction begins. There is also a 15-meter setback requirement from the high water mark. There are no structures on the subject property with the exception of an old foundation from a carport, and a large portion of the property has been cleared with the exception of some trees along the eastern property line. The future development will be subject to a development permit to address form and character, including parking requirements, landscaping, and view corridor. Overall, the rezoning application is consistent with the policies and objectives of the official community plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnston. Any questions for staff? Councillor Casper?
There's no need for these people to come back if there's a successful rezoning to get a development permit or anything like that. Is that correct?
Through the chair, they will need a development permit for 4 dwelling units, and it will come forward to council.
I only raise that because when we had discussions about development permits, I honestly feel there's no need for a development permit on this size of a development. It's of little or no impact on the community. And despite what the community plan says, we're under no legal obligation to actually implement that. That's what the law says. Council does not have to implement any portion of a plan of a community official community plan. So, when we talked about development permits, I think it's critical that we don't get bogged down in a lot of rhetoric. People have already submitted a basic outline as to what they're proposing to do. Geotech's been done. I don't want to see us taking waterfront property, restricting their uses or anything like that. I just sometimes get fed up with government sticking their face in people's business. So I just asked the question. I appreciate that staff have to follow the rules, but it's our decision ultimately. And this is way too small of a development to impose those sort of restrictions.
Okay, what you could do then, Councillor Casper, is as we work through this, is maybe add that into, if you want to compose some language, we could add that right in. Okay? Councillor Loggins.
Yeah, I would agree with what Councillor Casper had to say. I just wanted to add that this was a really great report and it answered all the questions I have, so I don't have any questions. I really appreciated the report. Thank you.
Councillor Berger.
Yes, thank you. Through you to staff, when I was down there today, it's a neat little area and it's a cute little road of maybe 3 or 4 people that live on it. But in the referrals, it says through engineering, paved the hammerhead turnaround that will be required at the end of the road. So I turned around there today, and is that all public land? Is it all road allowance? Because it looks like it could belong to one of the owners, but just for clarification, who owns that hammerhead?
Your worship, through to Councilwoman Berger, there is a significant amount of road right away there, and in relationship to a turnaround, dealing with the fire department, they'd like to see some betterments made for ease of turnaround for their apparatus.
Okay, and then so the bulk of what's already existing there, which looks like a natural hammerhead already, that's owned by the district.
That's correct, and it will be paved. Thank you. Thanks.
Any other questions? Councillor Pearson.
I can't help but echo Councillor Casper's sentiments. This is a single building with a fourplex, and this is if we remember back a meeting or two ago when we talked about streamlining the process, this is when we don't need a development permit. This is one of these things that, once we grant the zoning, then it's done as far as I'm concerned, because it's not one of those complex issues. So, yes.
Through the chair, our exemptions in the official community plan right now exempt just a single family dwelling. So if something like 4 units or less maybe could be added to the exemptions in the official community plan, and that could allow it to go in-house. And
I think this is a good time, as we discuss development permits and the like, to have these sort of conversations and to give the direction to staff in terms of I think it's helpful as they come up, because then we have a better understanding on how it actually applies. And so I would encourage all of council. You'll see in tonight's agenda, there's several. It's sort of a good hands-on time to sort of make that call, to send that direction. So I appreciate that. Councillor Parkinson.
So when at our previous meeting, we talked about the bylaw 648 for streamlining. But we were supposed to get a report to come back before we are able to do that. So shouldn't we carry on with the way we have it until we have our report back, so that everything will be following the same guidelines?
I think that makes sense, but at the same time, the opportunity arises itself. And this way, it for me anyway, because I can see it actually work its way out. It's good hands-on learning. I'm a bit of a lay person in this area, so it helps to have that perspective as it comes. And at the same time, staff can put together a policy for items that may fit outside of that, because we had some that were a lot different than this one. This is a small building.
Right.
Back to Councillor Parkinson.
So through your worship, does that mean that we have to change the OCP or the portion that you just said to allow for four apartments or 4
Excuse
condos?
me, Councillor Parr. What I sort of see, and what I encourage Councillor Casper to do, is as we go through this particular item, we can address the development permit at this time, and at the same time, staff can get that feedback and work on changing the greater picture. But at least this isn't waiting for that to come back. Okay. Does that make sense?
I don't know.
Your worship. Okay.
Hit it harder.
Microphone's on.
Your worship, through Councillor Parkinson, from the last council meeting with regards to presentation that staff made with regards to DPs, there was quite a few flavors with regards to what constitutes staff dealing with DPs and what constitutes coming to mayor and council for deliberations and ultimate approval. But it got into the point where it was, you were talking about the extremities, the extent of the building, etc., and the onerous conditions placed on development community. So it was felt that we would wait till we got more into the OCP process with regards to what you really wanted to see. But in this case, if you wanted to enact a policy with regards to a fourplex or less not requiring a DP, I think that would be appropriate. But unless you go that way, then we're bound to bring the DP forward after the rezoning is completed.
Councillor Pearson?
I think, though, I guess my through the chair to the staff, if we're going to talk about amending the bylaw, then is there not a public hearing required? I guess that's my, that's the piece that I'm, what we were trying to achieve at the last meeting. Anyways, okay, sorry, I've said enough.
Councillor Parkinson?
Right, and so it says that staff were asked to review the report and provide alternative options to council at a future meeting. So we should be getting the report back. Before that, we're making changes then, so that we know exactly what we're changing. No? That's what the motion was from the last
Councillor
meeting.
Casper, then Ray.
So I'm inclined to agree with what Mr. Howitt had suggested, that council can make a decision and ask staff to grant an exemption provision on fourplexes or less, not requiring a development permit. And if we approve all of these three items, then I'm prepared to make another item that the official community plan be amended to accommodate that. And then we could have one public hearing to deal with all of them. Does that make sense?
Councillor Ray, then Loggins?
No, that's fine. Thank you, Your Worship.
Okay. Councillor Loggins?
I was just wondering if we should use the language of 4 units or if a fourplex is best. I don't know the answer to that, but I'd be inclined to say units.
4 doors. Okay. Let's bring it back to this. This was a good discussion because I think it sort of shows how our last conversation, how it's now playing out here. But bringing back to this item here, there seems to be no questions about this. I'll ask council for first reading to bylaw 652 zoning as stated. Okay, that's moved by Councillor Pearson and seconded by Councillor Ray. That's item number 1. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried unanimously. And second reading, please. Moved by Councillor Berger and seconded by Councillor Casper. Any discussion on second reading? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. And for us to direct staff to schedule a public hearing for bylaw 652 in accordance with the requirements of sections 464 of the Local Government Act. Moved by Councillor Berger and seconded by Councillor Ray. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried unanimously. And point number 3, prior to final adoption of bylaw 652, the owner shall enter into a section 219 covenant with the District of Sault to address geotechnical requirements and to authorize the mayor and the CAO to execute the section 219 covenant. Moved by Councillor Loggins, seconded by Councillor Parkinson. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Is carried unanimously. Councillor Casper.
Yes, I would move that staff be instructed to prepare an amendment to the official community plan to provide for an exemption for the requirement of development permits on any development that is 4 units or less. Does that make sense? I'm looking at staff,
Is there a seconder?
especially our planner.
Okay, that was seconded by Councillor Pearson for discussion. We'll just take a pause just to have it up on the screen. Would you like to speak to that, Councillor Pearson, as we're waiting?
Well, I think and I appreciate the motion from my fellow Councillor Casper, and is that this is the time when we should have the discussion, is I think that we had the recommended action last time was 25 units or less for DPs, and I think that number may, yes, correct. I think that in the official community plan amendment, we should also include, I'd like to see that other report as part of this. I don't think that we could do this piece without doing the other piece. I think whether we think 25 is too many or 20 is the right number or whatever, I think that we need to, it needs to be part of that same discussion.
And I think
also, I support this motion to because I believe that 4 units or less don't require it. But what if it's a sixplex next time? Do we have to go through a public hearing? So I think we need a more in-depth staff report.
I think this gets to what Councillor Parkinson was saying. We're waiting for the staff report to come back.
Well,
with the
okay,
details.
and it's fine to pass a motion that it's 4, but what if it's a sixplex on the same property? Sorry.
I'm sorry? Mr. Howard?
Your Worship, through to Councillor Pearson. We're undertaking an OCP review right now globally, and chances are it's going to be amended anyway. So we can amend those type of policy decisions within the OCP. But maybe Mayor and Council could look at a policy direction with regards to 4 doors or less at this point, rather than doing an amendment of the OCP.
Councillor Casper,
Yeah,
I'm
erring on the side of caution as to do a bylaw amendment as opposed to create a policy, because I'm of the firm belief that just by implementing the policy, I think we might be in a position where we couldn't really override what the bylaw says. Usually a policy is a policy and a bylaw is a bylaw, so I want to err on the side of caution. And, for that matter, staff may come back with something after they start the process at our next meeting in October.
Comments from staff?
Through the chair. In the meantime, development applications like this still have to require a development permit until those amendments occur. To streamline the process, council maybe could look at that DP delegation bylaw, where until future amendments take place, that policy will delegate development permits approval to staff for something like 4 units or less. Otherwise, we'll still be coming up to council in the meantime until the amendments are done.
Yes, of course.
So, I appreciate the comment from staff. I think it's great. But the general, I don't know, I'm like listening to what people have had to say over the past 2 meetings. We actually don't want to be burdened or have the public. We're not talking about developers here. We're talking about people. And people who want to do something with their property, we don't need to see them go through the burden of getting a development permit, whether staff issue it or we issue it. That was my point of bringing the issue up. And I think Councillor Pearson and I, when we made that motion originally, we honestly felt that, why are we doing this? It really proves nothing. There's no benefit to the public. It just seems like an imposition. And I appreciate where staff is coming from. On a large-scale development, I agree 100%. On a steep slope, I agree 100%. So we just got to find a way. Thank you for your time.
I think we basically need that. We're going in a circle. I feel this is sort of an Excel circular reference where I'm right back to where I started again, and just looking for that. Staff is preparing a report on this for us to consider, and I think that will clarify a lot of things, because when it came forward the last time, we didn't want to roll ahead with it, which is totally fine. So now I think we're seeing the ramifications of that play out. Yes, Councillor Loggins.
Sorry, thank you. Just a quick note that I think, just touching on what Councillor Pearson had said about the number, is it 4, is it more, is it less? I think 4 would be perfect because right now that is the max allowed within the community growth area. So it does fit really well already with that.
Okay. Well, and that's what's on there. So let's begin with that. Okay. Yes, so there is a motion as stated here. Any discussion on the motion? Anything else? All those in favor? It's opposed? It's carried unanimously. Okay, thank you everyone for your patience on that. Okay, we're going to move along. Moving along here to the next one. We are in our reports requiring action. RA1. RA1 we've done. That's our Parks and Trails. So RA2, SOUP Program of the Arts Committee recommendations.
I'll move the recommendation.
Okay. Okay, we have the recommendation, and that is that the District of Sault Public Art Collection be digitized according to a professional standard. Yes, so we have an abundance, a wealth of art in this building. It's amazing how much there is.
I don't know what that means, professional standard, but I'm just assuming it's a good job, right?
Well, we've had volunteers make a really concerted effort on it, and it's a lot of work involved. So to have something that somebody actually come in and take care of it to get it done, even in my office in the chambers, it's amazing how much art we have. So that's what that is. Okay. Any discussion, Councillor Berger?
Yes, thank you. I just have a question as to what the financial implications would be. Like, is this hiring a consultant to photograph and catalog? There's just no talk of numbers.
Okay, back to our CAO.
My understanding is that it's to digitize the artwork, and I don't have any understanding of what the cost implications are because we haven't put out the phone call to 3 different people who might be able to do the work.
Okay, to our corporate officer.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, to Councillor Berger, we did look into that, and it would involve exactly what you said, bringing in a professional photographer who would digitize it in that way.
Councillor Parkinson?
Thank you. Sorry, just as a follow-up to the answering my question, if I may. So that being my only question was that what are the financial implications?
Okay.
For me, I'm a bit leery and nervous of what the financial implications can be. While I wholeheartedly agree that we need to digitize this and we need to get them categorized, I can't support a motion without figures attached to it if we don't know what they are. Where's the money going to come from? It's not within our current budget plan. So I would feel much more comfortable with us bringing it back to staff so we can get that information as what the financial implications will be and where that will fit within our current budget.
Okay. Any idea on, does anyone have any idea on the?
I would just like to, I was not at this meeting, but there was discussion of the public artwork and the committee members were downstairs. So we have a number of art pieces, like hundreds. And so from my understanding, we have to look after these pieces of art and that they all have to be accounted for. And I know that we found out that a number of the artwork that we had here, by looking at the numbers on the back, they were cataloged and they belonged to the museum. They didn't belong to the district. So the person that works at the museum, she catalogs and records all of the artwork that's in the museum, and she also sits on this board. So she was the one that was looking at that and putting it into detail on the forms that they use from the museum. So I don't know if that means professional standard or not. I have no idea. But when talking about that, there was a fee of $2,000.
Okay, Mr. Joseph?
Thank you, Your Worship. We do have an estimate from a professional person to come in and digitize it, but we have the estimate per piece. And to Councillor Parkinson's point, we're just establishing exactly how many pieces we had. So the estimate that we do have is between $1,500 and $3,000 because there's 148 items.
Okay. Okay, so say 3,000 at the high end for the pieces. Councillor Berger?
Yes, thank you. And so my next question would be through you to staff as to where those funds would come from within our budget.
Your worship, if I may, it will probably be in council contingency.
Council contingency?
Yes.
And we have room in the contingency? Okay. Okay, so if you just want to add that on, then as an amendment, a friendly amendment, then to access the 3,000, up to 3,000 from council contingency, and then it's all there. Okay, thank you, Councillor Berger and Councillor Casper. Any further discussion on the motion? We did move and second it, correct? Okay. Did we not second the motion? Okay, Casper. Okay, very good. Thank you, gentlemen. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried unanimously. Okay, moving along to RA3, Development Permit 2435 Phillips Road. Councillor Berger?
Yes, thank you. I'm going to remove myself from this item as this property is within the Sun River Development and my husband is a subcontractor for the Sun River Development.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Berger. Okay, we do have a staff report on this. Ms. Johnston.
The owner of this property has applied for a development permit to construct within the orange highlighted area a one-story 233 square meter amenity building to be used as a clubhouse space for a future senior strata development. The clubhouse will be on common property and will be used and managed for social, recreational, and leisure purposes by the strata. The property is zoned CD2, Sun River Estates Comprehensive Development Zone, and access to the subject property will be from Shambrook Drive. The scale, form, and character of the clubhouse will resemble a single-family dwelling, and the developer will be using materials such as hardy board with neutral colors. The developer has proposed the amenity building to blend in with the future single-family neighborhood. The landscaping proposed will incorporate plants appropriate to the local climate and includes the addition of Spanish lavender and sword fern. There will be a lawn area for recreational activities such as horseshoe toss and bocce ball. A total of 6 parking spaces are required, and the developer will be providing 17. Staff are satisfied that the zoning bylaw requirements have been met and that the form and character requirements in the official community plan have been satisfied. And the applicant is here to address any questions you may have. Thank you.
I guess a question that I have, since so much additional parking has been added and that this building is to serve the residents of what is to be a seniors neighborhood, is that more accessible spots, like wider spots, be added because there's so many? I just wonder, I see that there's one accessible spot added, but maybe it would be better to make more of them, like, because there's so much additional parking provided that maybe if more wider spots were added, that may serve those that are driving better. It would just provide for more. It would just be easier, I think, perhaps. It's just something to consider. It doesn't have to. I think some that could walk would walk there, but other ones that would need to drive or have a vehicle with a lift having additional. It's the width that's really getting in and out of vehicles. So I just, whenever I see, having driven my mom around who does need the extra space, or my father-in-law, every time that there's more width, it just makes it easier for people to get in and out. So since the opportunity arises to put in more accessible, I just feel it's important to raise it.
Through the chair, we can work with that.
Okay. Just an idea. Any other comments from council? I guess one that I have is that if we had passed that delegation with this would not have come before council. And I'm familiar of this because of the public hearing when we addressed the neighborhood. So I guess I wouldn't have had the opportunity to give my piece on accessible parking. But anyway, anything further from councillors? All right, the recommendation is that council issue the development permit for the purpose of constructing a clubhouse for use by residents of a future strata development at 2435 Phillips Road. Moved by Councillor Ray, seconded by Councillor Parkinson. Any further questions? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. And if we could please have Councillor Berger returned. Our next item is RA4, development permit for 6800 Grant Road. And we do have a report from Ms. Lashane. Welcome back.
This application is for an amendment to an existing development permit at 6800 Grant Road, originally issued in 2007 for the construction of 28 multifamily units. Currently, 14 of the 28 units have been constructed, and the owner has asked that Council consider an amendment to the development permit in order to respond to changing market conditions. These are some of the photos of the site. This gives you an idea of the form and character of the existing units, starting with the bridge located at the entrance, moving up into the development, showing some of the landscaping, and the last photo showing the end of the strata road where the final phases will be constructed at the top of the site. The changes to the units include a reduced height from 2 stories to 1 story plus a loft, reduced overall floor area, and an increase in the footprint of the building. The overall character and existing cladding materials will remain the same, such as the use of wood doors, cedar accents, and consistent color palette. The owner has also submitted an updated landscape plan that reflects the proposed site layout changes. The future landscape agreements for the site will incorporate the new plan. Staff have found that the proposed amendments are consistent with the overall form and character of the development and continue to meet the Sewell zoning bylaw and the official community plan. Staff have no objections to the development permit amendment and recommend that the application be approved.
Any questions to staff? Okay, there is a recommendation that Council approve the development permit amendment for the purpose of amending the development permit for 6800 Grant Road for the remainder of the property to allow for the construction of smaller 1-story units. Moved by Councillor Loggins, seconded by Councillor Casper. Any discussion on the motion? Councillor Parkinson.
Through your worship, I was just wondering, with them being smaller, does that mean that there would be more houses created, or is it still just the 14?
Through the chair, just 14 units.
Any other questions? Questions on the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? Is carried unanimously. Okay, thank you very much. And RA6 is, pardon me, sorry, RA5, proposed road closure and disposition of Sewell Road right-of-way. And we do have a report from staff.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This report is to address the proposed closure and sale of a section of undeveloped Sewell Road. Council has received information on the potential of closing and selling this portion of Sewell Road at previous council meetings. And at its special council meeting of March 7th, 2016, council resolved to direct staff to proceed with the public consultation process for the closure and disposition of Sewell Road right-of-way. The district is now in receipt of an application requesting council consider closing this section of Sewell Road leading to the Sooke River and selling it to the adjacent property owners for consolidation with their properties. Now that an application has been received, public consultation will also be triggered as per council policy number 2.2, which guides the road closure and sale process. The applicants, which are here tonight, if you want to speak to them, propose splitting the closed road as identified, with the yellow portion being consolidated with 6290 Sewell Road and the red portion being consolidated with 6283 Sewell Road. The applicants offered a variety of reasons why the 100-year-old road dedication should be closed and sold for consolidation with their adjacent properties. These reasons include the right-of-way has not been used for over 100 years that it has been dedicated. They identified the nature of the steep slope and floodplain at the Sooke River as possible reasons why the construction was not completed beyond the current end of pavement. Future road construction would not be practical due to the floodplain at the Sooke River as well as the crossing of Baker Creek. The adjacent properties are in the agricultural land reserve, which would affect future road construction. The lower fields allow for a wildlife corridor that would be greatly hindered by additional fencing and potential public traffic. Late summer provides an opportunity to hay all the adjoining properties. The upper field will allow for an expanded organic garden for local markets, and the upper road that's constructed portion of Sewell Road is very narrow and does not easily lend itself to parking, turnarounds, or mixed traffic without creating a safety hazard. The Sewell Road dedication has been in place for over 100 years. It provides legal undeveloped road access to the Sooke River, or conversely from the Sooke River to Sooke River Road. It is one of 3 dedicated public road rights-of-way that lead to the Sooke River and are accessed from Sooke River Road. You have an extensive package with you, and we'll be pleased to answer any questions.
Okay, any questions to staff? There's 2 recommendations on here, to proceed or to not proceed. Councillor Ray.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship, and through you to staff. I just need some clarification in terms of your conclusion on page 124. In the second paragraph, you have that because there are a few existing accesses, future applicant for a subdivision of the land along the river to provide a 20-meter road dedication to meet the LTA requirements. And so what I'm wondering is, I certainly, it makes good sense right now in 2016 to look at doing this, but what I need to clarify is that if we close this road, that somebody else will have to pay as part of their development, because we gave this, well, we don't give it, we sell it through a process. And so, in my mind, do we do this deal today with these applicants at the cost of somebody in the future who's wanting to do an application? We're saying, well, we only have 2 accesses now. We need a third, and you want to develop, so you're going to be the one that has to do it. But in addition to that, on page 122, it says here, Section 75 of the Land Title Act requires that subdivisions bordering on a body of water, that they must provide a 20-meter highway. So is that saying that the future development would have to do it anyhow, so there wouldn't be any cost addition? Does that make sense?
It does make sense. If someone is subdividing and their land does lead to the Sooke River, there's a possibility that we will have to ask them for a road dedication if there isn't one already existing within the prescribed distance. But other factors come into play, such as the ALR boundaries. Generally, we don't like to punch a road through the ALR unnecessarily. This is why we didn't make a specific recommendation to council, because it is really going to come down to what you're comfortable with.
Right. And if I can just, as a follow-up comment, then you bring in the community charter saying that it rests with the municipality to ensure that occurs. So it doesn't seem as straightforward with this report as it felt when we first talked about it.
Councillor Berger, then Pearson.
Yes, thank you. In reading through this, which, like you stated earlier, through you to staff, it is an extensive package, which is good because it does provide tons of information. When I looked at this, and being a part of the council back in 2009, when we were given a grant to look at feasibility studies on a potential second crossing, this one was one of the chosen ones because it was the most affordable with retrospects to what everything would cost. And being most affordable, it was still above $1 million. It was still unaffordable for the district to do, hence why we didn't do it. But amongst all the choices, I think because it hasn't been used in 100 years, lends to its topography. If you go there, it's very marshy, it's very, very steep, it's very narrow. It doesn't, for me, it doesn't make a lot of sense for us to keep that as a potential road when we own the land just on Sooke River Road before it. So if we were looking at a potential crossing where the horseshoe pitch is and the estuary opening that the District of Sooke owns, to me that would be a better potential crossing than having someone travel down Sooke River Road, down Sewell Road, which at that point, if we wanted to make it a potential crossing, we'd have to widen the road. It would be a huge expense, and then to deal with the topography as well as how marshy it is down there. So that's what played in my mind. And going through all this, research and all the work you did was, why would we hold on to it? And my second thought was we would hold on to it for a potential crossing because that's what it was identified for 100 years ago. That doesn't make sense to me, and the district now owns land that makes more sense, closer to the highway, which if we needed a second crossing would, for me, make more sense. So I'm inclined to go with the first option. Thank you.
Councillor Pearson?
Well, I think the question is that, we talked about this in March. I think that the appetite around the table at the time was, it made sense to get rid of it. I think we all went down there, we all looked at the road, and I think our appetite at that time was to proceed with preparation of a bylaw to remove it. And again, local governments are always accused of not making things happen fast enough, and here's this a case right in front of us that it's that same type of thing. So I'm going to make a motion to proceed with the preparation of a bylaw to close and remove the highway dedication, dispose of the undeveloped Sewell Road right away adjacent to 6290 and 6283 Sewell Road.
Second. Okay, so that's moved by Councillor Pearson, seconded by Councillor Berger. Discussion on the motion, Councillor Casper.
So just to give members of council and the public some comfort, any revenue that's derived would have to go into a fund for the purpose of actually acquiring access to the water, correct? Okay, so it's not like somebody's going to be burdened fully. There would still be some money to offset that cost or that implication. So I'm comforted by the motion.
Okay, I think
Thanks.
For myself, to add to what Councillor Casper said, is that as opportunities may arise in the future on Sewell River Road, that we continually look for options. I remember the report when it came for the, pardon me, my microphone isn't on. I remember the report when it came for the Sewell River crossing. None of them stood out as a good. They were all with challenges. There were, I think, a number identified, then there were 8, then it was reduced to 4, and they were all, as Councillor Berger said, this being one, it was very expensive, but they're all, even if it was expensive, it's still not a straightforward crossing. The topography, the height, the span, the width, all those things. The fact that the funding, it's very echoey in here. Why is that? Okay, it's just something to observe. I'm hearing my own voice in my head. Going forward, though, because the funds would be put into his fund to continually seek out another crossing at some point, I think is of comfort to me. Just because we haven't done something in 100 years doesn't mean we don't need to do something in 100 years going forward. So just having the funds there. What I don't want this to be, though, is a precedent for anyone that has some sort of access to the water to come forward that we're willing to sell, because there's lands along the river and then there's all sorts of lands along the harbor and the basin. So this is one-off. It's not precedent setting that, okay, anyone with access, come on by and we're going to close off the public. I've been to this site. It is difficult to navigate. It's just not an easy. Sewell Road is very narrow on its own, and the topography here and the height and everything, it's challenging. So I am comforted by the discussion here. It is on record as well. And I think we just always need to look for opportunities going forward. But Councillor Ray.
Thank you, Your Worship. And again, I just want to, I support the motion, but we have to be prepared that under the community charter, it will require us to use those funds to buy property that has access to the Sewell River. So as long as, it's not just about, putting a footbridge over. There's a legal requirement here that this council or a council in the future is going to have to find another access piece of property to buy. So that's all. I just want to make sure that we understand that that's not just about crossing the river.
So at this point, just to staff, council moves ahead with item number 1. If the motion passes, what is the process? Then it would go through a public hearing process. Is that correct? Or no? Or
no, it's going to follow a bylaw process now.
A bylaw process.
We'll come back with a bylaw. We have the policy that we follow.
Okay.
The applicant will go away and do some work, and then we'll come back with a bylaw.
And it would be sort of first, second, third reading, public hearing, adoption, and the like. Okay. Okay. All right, and so that will give the public opportunity to comment as well. Okay, so any discussion on anything further on the recommendation and the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried unanimously. Okay, thank you very much for the report. It's a lot of work there. Number RA6 then, proposed road closure and sale of excess road right-of-way for Maple Park Terrace. And we did receive some comment earlier from a member of the public. Okay, go ahead.
All right, thank you. One more. So the district has received an application for the closure and sale of road right-of-way at the end of Maple Park Terrace from the developer of Viewpoint Estates, which is what we all know as former Spiritwood, just so you can place your bearings. The applicant proposes the closure and sale of road right-of-way that was dedicated in the year 2000 but never formally constructed as road. This section of right-of-way allowed for a hammerhead turnaround space at the end of the dead-end road. In July 2015, Council granted a development permit to the developer to permit subdivision of the first 23 lots in the development. As part of the design process, the applicant has requested Council consider closing and removing the highway dedication for parts of the Maple Park Terrace hammerhead that would no longer be needed once a new road dedication through the subdivision is registered. This road dedication will provide a linkage between Maple Park Terrace and Winfield Drive. The applicant proposes consolidating the closed road with adjacent lots, and should Council direct staff to proceed to the bylaw stage, consultation with the neighboring properties will be required to address the final layout options. Staff have evaluated the application based on the district's road closure and sale policy, and it has been determined that once the subdivision plan dedicating the extension of Maple Park Terrace has been registered, the excess road dedication at the end will no longer be required. Traffic will be able to loop through the new subdivision and will no longer require a turnaround point. All other infrastructure requirements will be accommodated within the new road development. This slide here shows the existing constructed Maple Park Terrace in green, the proposed areas of road dedication that were not constructed, and the applicant had asked the district to close in yellow, and the blue is the proposed future road dedication that is currently under construction. And any questions?
I guess the question that I have for the member of the public that spoke earlier in terms of the connectivity, which part, I don't know which part he would be referring to. That's why that's happening. Okay, go ahead.
I'm not sure where he's running from. If you look at the area in yellow, maybe they're coming up through the private property. We do have the developer's representative here if you do have any specific questions for him. But there's going to be, as you can see, number 5 there, that's going to be a lot. And they're not going to be running through someone's backyard, unfortunately.
Okay. Councillor Pearson.
Yeah, I guess my question is that, so the future road dedication is there, so is it the chicken and the egg situation here? That's my question.
The timing would have to jive with the dedication and actual opening of this road.
Yeah, I mean, we don't need that hammerhead road, it's pretty obvious, so, okay, thanks.
So we do have a recommendation. Are there any other questions on the report? The diagram really clarified everything. Okay. The recommendation is that Council direct staff to proceed with the preparation of a bylaw to close and remove the road dedication, dispose of the portions of undeveloped Maple Park Terrace. And that Council direct staff to proceed with the road closure and sale process as per Council policy number 2.2. Can that be together? Okay. So that's been moved and seconded by Councillor Pearson and Councillor Ray. Any discussion on the motion, points 1 and 2? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for the report. Okay, so at this point, that concludes our reports. My goodness. Okay, I've already checked. Pardon me. RA7. I'm not used to working with the paper now. It's confusing. RA7, Parkland dedication requirements for a proposed subdivision at 2105 Furwood Place. Ms. Lors, thank you.
Thank you. The purpose of this report is for Council to consider accepting cash in lieu of parkland dedication for a proposed 4-lot subdivision at 2105 Furwood Place based on the BC assessment land value. The property was rezoned to small lot residential zone in July 2016, and the property owner has now applied to subdivide the parcel into 4 lots. This application triggers the requirement of Section 510 of the Local Government Act for parkland dedication. Because the Parks and Trails Master Plan doesn't identify this property for any strategic parkland acquisition, staff recommend Council consider accepting cash in lieu instead. Those funds will then be placed in a reserve account for future parkland acquisition.
Any discussion from staff? Councillor Loggins?
I was just going to move the recommendation.
Second.
Okay, so that's been moved and seconded by Councillor Loggins and Councillor Parkinson. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Lewis. Okay, that concludes the reports requiring action and moves to reports for information, starting off with Mayor and Council reports. Councillor Casper.
Yeah, the only thing I have to report, and I'm going to rely on our CAO to pick up on what I have to say. It's as my role as the council's representative for the transition group, working group of staff and myself on the takeover of sewer operations from EPCOR. We've had a number of.
Does Councillor Pearson need to step out?
You're going to go into that in your report. I would have to leave and declare conflict.
It's not in-house.
No, there's nothing to do with labor.
It's still with the taking over the transition. We're going to talk about labor potentials.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Thank you.
Okay. It's kind of awkward, right? And anyway, I just wanted to give council and the members of the public just a brief outline. It will be less than 3 weeks until the district takes over the operation, and that was provided for in the 6 months' notice. I'll let staff talk to the budgetary implications, but it appears that we are on track with the projected annual cost savings that was calculated in March of this year. And there's been a number of current contracts that exist from the previous operator, which was EPCOR, that have agreed to take over and carry on to provide that service at what I've been told identical price. And we have a contract with the SCADA, a company to deal with the SCADA, which is the monitoring of all the pumps, all of the systems remotely, so that if there's a problem, then that can be dealt with, and it's to assure that our staff and the organization has 24/7 access remotely as to how everything's running. So things appear to be moving forward. Also, I think I was advised today that we've taken over some of the equipment, the vehicles that were owned by EPCOR, correct?
Your Worship, through to Councillor Casper, we are having the vehicles. We are having the vehicles inspected, I believe, in a week from now, and then we'll assess which ones we're going to take, if not all three or none.
Right. So anyway, I just wanted to advise council at this opportunity and the members of the public that things have moved fast in a very smooth fashion, and I want to thank staff for all their work and efforts on making the transition as smooth as possible. And I don't think we had to engage any legal advice or any problems that way. Everything seemed to move smoothly. But I'll turn to our CAO when she gives her report as to whatever the financial, projected financial outcomes are. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Casper, and thank you for all of the work that you've done with this transition. We have perhaps had some dialogue that when the transition comes that there be some sort of open house or educational component to the public, what to flush, not to flush. I think that may be of interest, I think, to some. When you flush something, where does it go? What happens to it? And also, perhaps we could tie in some sort of the toxic roundup at some point so that harsh items aren't necessarily poured down the drain. That may be something to consider at the same
Well,
time.
there's one thing I just want to add, is that as a result of the takeover and with our staff examining all the components of running a sewer system municipally, there will be some future decisions on establishing a body that can deal with some of the issues relating to our permit and to give hopefully some sound advice to our staff. I don't know what shape that could take place, and that could be just staff, but we have to do some things. And also, I'm hoping that our CAO can just elaborate on the correspondence we've received in regarding to using our facility as a training opportunity facility, because we did have some discussions about that, and there was information passed on to staff. I just don't have the email with me so that I can refer to. So, okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Casper. Does any other members of council have any items to report out on? Councillor Berger.
Yes, thank you. Just one with respects to Sea Park. The ice surface is now in and up and running again. During the downtime, Sea Park installed new LED lighting over the arena surface, and it looks fantastic in there if you have a chance to go in. Obviously, it'll be more efficient, and then, excuse me, it's much brighter on the ice. Ice allocations are looking full with both the middle school and high school's hockey academies running during the day. Sea Park programming, Soup Skating Club, and minor hockey, and adult teams all returning during the night. So there's not a whole lot of empty space left on the ice, which is great to see. On a side note, I'm attending a Sea Park meeting tomorrow as well, and I'm going to be thanking Mr. Kanoki in person. But the Sea Park staff have been fantastic, and all weekend long they posted on the Sea Park sign a memorial crest for Carter Navarrete, who was a hockey player in Souk for over 10 years. So I think it was well done and fantastic of them to post that.
Thank you, Councillor Berger. I'd also like to thank Councillor Casper for filling in at Sea Park in his role as CRD Director, and I will see you there tomorrow, Councillor Berger. Other members of council? The one item I would like to share is that recently the federal government launched a review of the National Energy Board's approval of the Kinder Morgan Trans Mountain Pipeline Expansion Project. And so myself, along with other local government representatives, attended a open house that a local government roundtable to give our input to the national or to the federal body, which we did. So I did present on behalf of council, sharing the results of the plebiscite and other concerns and comments brought forward by council. The way that I see this unfolding is that the federal review will complete early December, and they will give their announcement as to whether they accept or reject what has been put forward by the National Energy Board. That said, the province is now waiting for that, because the province has declared that they have 5 conditions that must be met in order to grant approval for Trans Mountain to work its way through the province. So that is expected to be given in the early new year. Some changes since Kinder Morgan was here and presented to us is that they've extended that where the pilot is to remain on board through the Juan de Fuca and then would be heli-lifted off of the vessel. And so that way we have sort of experience in this water remaining on board. And Kinder Morgan is funding the training to have all the pilots lifted off, because you have to, the helicopter doesn't land on the vessel. They have to be rope lifted off of the vessel, and tug escorts are also required. So those are a couple of changes. Staff is working on a town hall event that we spoke about earlier. It is in our strategic plan to have 2 years, so we do want to go ahead and have one. That's going to tie in with our strategic plans, our committee review, the communication plans, and the like. So there's a lot of work that's happening right now so that we can have this concluded this year. But I do want to take this opportunity to thank our first responders. This has been a very busy summer for them. It's been a very difficult one as well for everyone that has responded to the various incidents. So I just want to acknowledge and thank everyone for their commitment and their efforts in keeping our community safe, and to also thank our staff for keeping us apprised of the events as they have unfolded, unfortunately. So, thank you. Anything else from council? Okay, I'll move on to our CAO report, RI2.
Thank you, Your Worship, to Council. I would just like to take this opportunity to thank Councillor Casper for all the work he did with the EPCOR Transition Working Group. He's provided a history that is invaluable to staff, especially because we haven't been around since the inception of the sewage treatment plant. So thank you very much, Councillor Casper. With respect to the transition, we're 19 days out. Things have been going incredibly smoothly with respect to the hiring of Dan Skidmore as the manager. He used to work at EPCOR, and he's been doing a fabulous job, so much so that we have not had to hire any legal counsel, or very little legal counsel with respect to the transition. And I can't say that's true of other municipalities where they've brought it in-house. They've extended some quite significant legal costs associated with the transition. So kudos to Dan Skidmore and Rob Howitt for the work that they've done with respect to this transition. An example of some of the money we've been able to save as a result of our efforts here is one example is with respect to the centrifuge. The centrifuge, the original quote we got from Stantec and EPCOR was over $300,000. And with respect to staff's efforts, that bill went from $300,000 to $47,000. So that's significant savings just on that one piece of the operations of the treatment plant. So we are uncovering opportunities for savings on a regular basis, and we are in line with what we projected. And with respect to also bringing the training in-house, we've been in touch with the BC Wastewater Training Association, who are extremely excited about the opportunity of using our plant as a training center for their students. So we can look forward to having some more information come forward to Mayor and Council as the transition happens on October 1st. And into the new year. So exciting opportunities and exciting times ahead for us.
Thank you, Ms. Sullivan. Is there anything else?
Not at this time. I'll have a more robust CIO update in October.
Okay. I would, if possible, at our town hall, if there's a way to display information about the sewer transition, I think that would be of interest to the public. And the training center and the like, I think,
sure.
In addition to the cost savings, but I think that would be
And I should let you know that Talktober is well underway in the planning stages anyway. We plan to have budget conversations, OCP conversations, economic development conversations, as well as the mayor's open house. So October is an extraordinarily busy time for us. We've already been, just as a side note, I was talking to staff this morning, and we've already had some really exciting feedback on our OCP. Over 100 people talked to one of our staff members yesterday. So yeah, it's going really well with respect to the community consultation piece.
Thank you very much. Okay, next is C1, correspondence received September 7th from the FCM, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, and it's looking for Canada 150 community leaders. Since we belong to FCM, it was just in Canada's 150. I'm well aware that there is a group that's doing a lot of work for the celebrations next year, and it's just we belong to the organization, so this came about. It may be a way just to even share what that group is doing to the FCM voice.
Good job for
His time in his retirement. I mean, I'm willing to take the role on myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't qualify as I need a haircut. Okay. Thoughts from council? No. I'll sure. Okay. Thank you.
Do you need a motion?
Yes, I do.
Well, I will move that the mayor be our appointed designate for the FCN 150.
Yes. Thank you. Okay, thank you. That sounds good. Moved by Councillor Casper and seconded by Councillor Ray. Any discussion on the motion? I'll keep you posted on what this means as we roll forward. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. For correspondence for information, items I1, I2, I3, I4, we'll just move receipt as a block. We can pull out any items if there's anything that you would like to discuss. Councillor Ray?
Do you want the motion then first?
Yeah,
okay,
we can.
So moved.
Moved receipt and seconded by Councillor Loggins. Okay, and Councillor Ray, if there's items to pull.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have 3 items. I had a lot more, but just the 3.
Okay.
On page 185, the email with respect to the Keynes Family Park at the bottom of Charters on Water Street, and the fact that he was disappointed with the overgrowth. Just thought maybe that should go to Parks and Trails be referred to Parks and Trails. Unless there's something that's been done already.
So I understand maybe staff that there was a change in contractor, so it was overlooked, but it's been taken care of.
Yeah, Your Worship, there was a change in contractor, and we were not aware of what was happening down there. So immediately upon receiving this, I instructed staff to get our contractor on it immediately. It should have been done by now.
Comment, if I may. Yes. You know, it'd be nice to have a bench down there. You know, we spoke about, I think it was the Parks and Trails Committee, looking at access to water places around the district. And here we have a piece of property with a beautiful view. It would be nice if it had a bench so people could actually see the water. Okay, and then the second item I have is on page 253. The Sault Region Chamber of Commerce has identified it's canceling its involvement with the Sault Santa Parade and the Sault Salmon Festival, and I'm just thinking Christmas is just around the corner, and it has been such a success in the past. I'm just wondering if there are any plans or if there's anything on the horizon to suggest that somebody else or an organization would take on the Santa Parade.
Yeah, the Santa Parade.
Well, no, the Salmon Festival and the Santa Parade.
Yeah, they've also pulled out for the Santa Parade. It is something that we would need to start. Councillor Pearson.
Well, I guess Councillor Casper and I talked about this somewhere along the line. Could I make a motion, or could I, through the chair to you, at this point, to get staff to give us the implications of them moving out of that contract? Like, what did we save in money, and would it be okay, or maybe investigate that we appointed a parade chairman or something, like with that money, like a donation? I don't know what to do, because it has been, you know, to Councillor Ray's comments, it has been extremely successful, so we don't want to lose that, right? So, I don't know.
Are you suggesting like a certain amount be given to a service organization as like an honorarium for doing the parade?
Well, I think that we need to act on it now. Like,
yes.
If we're going to say to, and I hate to say Lauren Christensen's group or whatever, you know, a name, but somebody probably wants to do it, but is there ways through the money that we're saving from that contract that we could help them out in advance, as opposed to waiting till it's too late?
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, Councillor Parkinson.
You would you? I was just going to say it was just like Canada Day, where the Lions Club took over that one. So I think that for the Canada Day parade, we need another organization to step forward. So the Legion is having their meeting, so I thought I would put it forward to them to see if they would like to organize it. But we give funding to the Lions to put on Canada Day, so I would assume we would give funding to whomever's going to put on the parade.
Yeah. Yeah. And through the chair to you, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Is that we need to do it quickly?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Oh, sorry. We need to do it soon, because you know it's something that it is in the line of economic development, and it's a sense of pride. And you know what? This is our second year with our new lights, and I think Councillor Casper organized getting more this year. I'm not sure if we got more lights for them. Oh, didn't you? Did we buy more?
I think there's two things. First off, if the Legion is unable to do it, then we need to send out a call.
We should send out a call anyhow.
We should send out a call and then determine what, you know, I'm thinking just some sort of an honorarium to a group, like
Well,
And so we are saving some funds with the chamber cancellation, but I don't want to wait till October to find out what that dollar amount is. So I think it's a matter of,
Okay. So,
yes.
So could I make a motion then to direct staff to make a call to, the number of organizations that, and see if there's any interest in that, and have a report back to us for, I make a motion. Like I think Councillor Parkinson has said the Legion may potentially be somebody. She's going to take care of the asking piece, but we need to have a couple of people interested, okay? Yeah. And the second part of my motion is we budgeted somewhere along the line for additional festive lighting in downtown from last year, and where are we at in purchasing that?
We need to order that now.
Yes, and I've been in conversations with the manufacturer of the lighting, and we're just making final decisions on which ones we want. Last conversation I had, we had chosen like 6 additional larger lights, and it's just a question mark of what style we wanted. So I have been working back and forth with the manufacturer of the lights. We'll have them before Christmas.
Before the parade.
Oh, yes.
Which is the first Saturday of...
And we wanted it in the evening so that we have the lights on.
So it has to be before the end of November.
Yes, so we actually need to capture your motion though, because we're now discussing it. So the motion is that staff
to
Your Worship.
send out a call to someone to
our corporate office.
Your Worship, you have a motion on the floor currently to receive for information, so may I suggest you vote on that first and then move this motion?
Good call. Okay, so I'm going to call the question just to get our rules in order here. I'm going to call the question to receive the correspondence because it's on the floor. It's already been moved and seconded, so we'll just call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried unanimously. Okay, now that's cleared, and then the next one would be that staff be directed to put a call out for a Santa Parade coordinator. A service group is what we're looking for. And what is the honorarium would be my other question, because we need to finalize that as well. Councillor Ray.
Yes, Your Worship. I'm just wondering in terms of setting an honorarium, without knowing sort of what the costs were by the Souk Chamber in terms of advertising and that sort of thing, it might be.
Thank you, Your Worship, through to Councillor Ray. It's something that staff, I think, need to do some investigations on. I don't think we could set a limit right now because we don't know.
But I think it would be a reasonable amount. Like I'm not thinking, I just don't want us to wait to be, like we would, our next meeting is in October. So in the essence of moving along, I think we're looking at $500 at the most?
No.
I don't know.
To organize the parade? No, more than that?
More than that.
Oh, okay.
Oh, definitely.
All right,
I don't want to put a limit on it.
I don't want a limit on it. Councillor Casper?
Well,
Really?
somebody's got to advertise the fact there's going to be a parade and the date.
Posters.
And that here's the place to register, and then it's all got to be organized.
And you
right?
got to close down the street.
And then, there's a whole host of things. So it could be, a couple of grand anyway, minimum.
If I may, Your Worship, we don't necessarily have to wait until our next council meeting. I can provide this information to Mayor and Council in an email form, so you have a better understanding of what costs are involved. It won't take much, a couple of phone calls.
Okay. Is everyone comfortable with that? Okay. Does that capture your motion, Councillor Pearson?
Absolutely. I just want to make sure
Can you speak with your microphone on?
Yes. And the intent of my motion is for staff to go out, find a service group, and then look at the costs afterwards, like as opposed to us saying, okay, it's going to, and then get back into spinning around. Let's make this happen. Okay?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. So that's been moved and seconded by Councillor Pearson and Councillor Ray. Any more to add on this?
Not to that one, but I would like to make another motion.
Okay,
after
let's
that one, okay?
deal with this one first. Okay.
Well, I can tell you that.
All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried unanimously. Councillor Parkinson.
So our main Christmas tree is the one that's out front of the Legion, and we have that lit up every year. And that tree needs to be cut on the bottom and cleaned up. All the garbage is thrown underneath it, and it's on district property. So I would like a motion that we trim the bottom of that tree.
Get a
and get it ready so we can have, whatchamacallit, come light them up.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, so that is just waiting for it to be Mr. Lebecki. Okay. Will there also be a tree in the roundabout? Can anything fit in there?
After I did that last year, I don't think I want to go that route.
Not officially.
No. Way to kill the Christmas spirit.
Oh, we could have one.
Okay, so the motion is that council directs staff to trim and prepare the Christmas tree on district property at the Legion for Christmas.
And is it staff who are going to do it, or are you going to make arrangements?
Staff will look after it.
Okay, so that's been moved by Councillor Parkinson. Is there a seconder? Pardon me, Councillor Pearson has seconded. Okay, any discussion on the motion? Councillor Loggins?
Just wondering if we need that as a motion or if it can just be direction.
Well, it's there. We've moved and seconded it, but good point. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried unanimously. We got a report on the Christmas lights, so that's coming. I would like to see something festive in the center of the roundabout. So there could be a reindeer, it could be a snowman, something festive.
If you put it up, don't admit it.
I take full responsibility for whatever festive tree, rock, or anything ends up in the roundabout. But I just think that it would be a nice seasonal feature. It needs something.
I gotta say something to this. And last year, the people who donated the tree didn't even want their names mentioned.
I know.
Because they didn't want the public to know that it came from them.
I loved it. I thought it was fabulous. Councillor Loggins?
They call me Ebony or Ebenezer Scrooge for this reason. Christmas is not on the agenda, so I just want to caution any more motions when the item is not on the agenda.
Yes.
If I may, Your Worship.
Councillor Ray?
It came from the fact that the Chamber cancelled the Souk Santa parade from the... So, okay. All
Yes.
right. I have one more.
Councillor Ray? Yep.
I was just wondering if the District of Souk was going to look at the BC Hydro Power Smart Beautification Fund. What caught my eye was...
Do you have a page number?
295. What caught my eye was about taking existing overhead distribution lines and putting them underground. So I was just wondering if that might be something we'd be looking at.
Go dig up the new road.
Well, no, there's other roads that have heavy wires. Anyhow, that's all my questions.
There is a deadline of October the 1st, so if staff does have any ideas, it would be good to work on them in the time that is remaining. Thank you. Yes.
Okay, it's just one item.
Okay, you need to turn on your microphone, though.
I think there was one item in the correspondence, I just can't remember. It was about a federal funding program for energy reduction. And it's in there. And I'd asked Steve, the manager from Sea Park, while I was on Sea Park, and it stems from what Councillor Berger talked about, the retrofit that occurred at Sea Park to reduce energy consumption. And I'd asked him to forward the package or the information to our district staff, and I don't know if it got there or not, but I think there's an opportunity to do something with our building here and to help reduce our consumption of electricity. And, I don't know how much these things eat up and if there's any additional ways, to help make the reduction. But it's just something to consider. And I'm not advocating you spend a lot of time doing it, but if there's an opportunity to do something, then perhaps we should do that.
Does anyone have anything else from the correspondence? Nope. So on that note, I'll ask for a motion to close the meeting and to go in camera, subject to Section 90 C, D, I, and K. Moved by Councillor Berger, seconded by Councillor Ray. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, thank you very much, everyone.